A woman ordered a coffee in Piccadilly. She had no idea she was standing on the ruins of a lost Egyptian temple. Somewhere else, a massive steel tower once hovered over the Thames until Churchill had it destroyed. And behind the flashing lights of Charing Cross Road, a legendary music venue was silently buried to make way for progress. London doesn't just build, it forgets. But beneath its shining skyline lie stories of buildings erased, reinvented or replaced. These are the 12 landmarks that vanished, and the secrets they left behind. These aren't just lost buildings, they're lost identities. Markers of a London that once was, now buried beneath coffee shops, parking lots and office towers. And yet, their stories still shape the soul of the city. It stood like a Roman sentinel at the gateway to London's first intercity terminal. Built in 1837, the Euston Arch was a towering sandstone monument inspired by classical antiquity, imposing, elegant, and entirely unnecessary. But it captured the spirit of the age, proud, industrial, and unafraid to dream big. For over a century, it greeted millions of passengers with its massive columns and symbolic presence. Then came 1962. In a decision that still enrages preservationists, the British Transport Commission ordered it demolished to make room for a redesigned station. The stones weren't preserved in a museum, they were dumped in the River Lea. Today, a dull road leads to Euston Station, and the arch exists only in faded photographs and in the fury of those who never wanted it lost. Before the London Eye ever turned, there was another giant watching over the city. The Great Wheel, built for the 1900 Empire Exhibition, stood 308 feet tall and could carry over 1,000 passengers at once. Inspired by the Ferris wheel in Chicago, it was a bold Victorian spectacle, a ride into the sky during an age obsessed with progress. But the Great Wheel didn't last. By 1920, it was dismantled and scrapped. Its purpose, pure entertainment, was too costly to maintain. Where it once stood, no trace remains, yet its influence is visible every time a capsule of the London Eye makes its slow, elegant climb into the clouds. London's original Chinatown wasn't in Soho, it was in Limehouse along the docks, born from sailors and traders who brought pieces of China to England's gritty East End. By the late 19th century, Chinese immigrants had created a community of tea houses, laundries and apothecaries. It was mysterious, misunderstood, and often misrepresented in sensationalist newspapers and novels. Bombed heavily during World War II, and reshaped by urban planning, Limehouse's Chinatown faded into obscurity. By the 1950s, most of its population had relocated to Soho. The old streets were rebuilt, the shop signs removed, and an entire chapter of cultural history quietly rewritten in the name of progress. Ask someone to picture Wembley, and they'll likely think of the Arch. But for decades, Wembley was known for its twin towers, iconic, white, majestic. Opened in 1923, the original stadium was built in just 300 days, and it hosted everything from World Cup finals to Olympic glory, with the towers serving as proud sentinels. In 2003, the towers were demolished to make way for the ultra-modern version we know today. While the new stadium may be more advanced, something intangible was lost. The Twin Towers weren't just architecture, they were emotion, memory, presence, and for many, Wembley hasn't felt quite the same since. In 1605, a grand mansion rose near Kensington High Street, Cope Castle, later known as Holland House. Over centuries, it became a hub for political salons, hosting Whig Party elites, writers, and foreign dignitaries. It stood as a symbol of power and refinement, wrapped in ivy and English charm. Then came the bombs. In 1940, during a single Luftwaffe raid, 22 bombs struck Holland House. Most of the structure was destroyed, leaving only fragments of its walls standing. What had once echoed with laughter and debate now stood hollow, a ruin left as a silent witness to the price of war. It looked like it floated, Built in 1951 for the Festival of Britain, the Skylon was a needle-shaped tower suspended mid-air, held by cables in a way that defied gravity. At 300 feet tall, it became a futuristic emblem of post-war optimism, symbolizing a Britain ready to rebuild. But its time was brief. Just a year later, Winston Churchill ordered its removal. It was scrapped, physically dismantled and erased. Some say it was political, others say practical. Today, the South Bank, where it once stood, offers no sign of its presence, only memories and photographs of a moment when Britain tried to dream big again. Standing beside the Skylon in 1951, the Dome of Discovery was another centrepiece of the Festival of Britain. The largest dome in the world at the time, it housed exhibits about space, science and the future. It was bold, educational and filled with post-war wonder. But like the Skylon, its fate was sealed quickly. By 1952, it was demolished to make room for redevelopment. Its innovative design and uplifting message were buried by practicality. In its place, a parking lot. The dome was gone, and with it, a vision of Britain that dared to look forward. In the heart of Piccadilly, once stood a building that looked more at home beside the Nile than on London streets. Egyptian Hall, built in 1812, was one of the first structures in England to adopt Egyptian revival architecture. It housed curiosities, exhibitions and artifacts from around the world, drawing crowds with its exotic flair. By 1905, it was gone, demolished to make way for commercial buildings. Today, a Starbucks stands near its original location. From Temple of Mystery to Temple of Caffeine, the transformation speaks volumes about the city's evolving tastes and what it's willing to sacrifice in the name of progress. Originally built for the Great Exhibition of 1851, the Crystal Palace was a wonder of its time, a cathedral of glass and iron showcasing industry, art and invention. After the exhibition, it was moved to Sydenham and expanded, becoming a landmark visited by millions. But in 1936, a fire reduced it to rubble. Flames lit up the sky as crowds watched helplessly. Only stone remnants remain in the park today. The palace that once represented Victorian ingenuity and optimism was gone overnight, and with it, a symbol of an era's confidence. Tucked between the Strand and Lincoln's Inn Fields, Wych Street was a crooked row of old Tudor and Elizabethan buildings, steeped in history and legend. Its narrow lanes and leaning houses looked like a portal to Shakespearean London, imperfect, eerie, enchanting. But in 1901, it was wiped off the map. The city needed to modernise, and the street was demolished to create Aldwych and Kingsway. In trying to make space for the new, London buried its own theatrical past, and one of its oldest streets disappeared without a trace. It wasn't just the buildings that vanished, it was the atmosphere, the character, the soul of a corner of London that no longer fit the modern blueprint. And today, thousands walk those new roads, unaware they're treading on buried history, where playwrights once wandered and ghost stories were born. Music pulsed through its walls. From the 1920s as a cinema to its transformation into a legendary concert venue, the London Astoria hosted generations of live performances, from Radiohead to the Rolling Stones. It was chaotic, electric, and intimate, a cornerstone of the capital's music scene. In 2009, it was demolished to make way for the Crossrail project. A piece of underground rail replaced a palace of sound. For many fans, the music didn't just stop, it was silenced, and what replaced it couldn't hum with memory the same way. Have you ever walked past a place and wondered what used to stand there? At the corner of Poultry and Queen Victoria Street, once stood a stunning neo-Gothic marvel, the Mappin Web Building. Completed in 1870, it housed one of the city's finest jewellers and symbolised Victorian commercial pride, pointed arches, detailed stonework, and elegance in every brick. In 1994, it was razed, Today, its replacement, Number 1 Poultry, sits in stark contrast with pink limestone and postmodern lines. The old building's ornate charm gave way to sharp geometry, a perfect metaphor for London's eternal cycle of reinvention at the cost of memory. Some call the new building bold, others still grieve what was lost. It's hard to replace character with concrete, and even harder to forget it. Cities evolve, streets change, and sometimes entire landmarks vanish without a sound, not destroyed by disaster, but quietly erased by time, development, or neglect. London is a city that remembers through shadows, echoes, and half-told stories. The Astoria, the Skylon, the Crystal Palace, all gone, yet still alive in the memories of those who knew them, and the photos that refuse to fade. If you believe that the past deserves more than just a footnote, subscribe to this channel. Because behind every demolished wall and vanished dome, there's a story still waiting to be told.